Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to the weekend preview, and we have a bit on our plates this week. I'll work through that, and I think a lot of it will be stemmed around Paddy Dangerfield and Scott Pendlebury, two of our more reliable players over recent years. But first I'll just take a quick look at the teams. Both Dangerfield and Rory Sloane have been named. Whether that actually pans out in that fashion is yet to be seen. We'll have to wait and see till tomorrow. Scott Selwood's back, Tom Stewart's back. That could affect some. Mitch Hibbert is out. Teddy Goldstein is out. Where the hell is Bruce? I have no idea. Majak Dor will just lead the way solo. But anyway, nonetheless, we'll have to move that on. Other than that, I don't think there were too much. Obviously, Gary Ablett is out with a hamstring. You just wonder if he's getting that stage of his career where these little injuries are just par for the course now. Luke Ryan has been omitted, but for disciplinary reasons, drinking after the Derby last week. So one would like to think he'd come straight back in, but you just never know, really. Fingers crossed. A few outs for the Saints, but nothing overly SuperCoach relevant. And then, of course, we move on to the extended benches, which, of course, Pendlebury is out. We all know that. Elliot Yeo is back in. That's very good to see, but was also expected. And Brisbane Carlton, not too much of interest by the looks of things. No. Let's talk Dangerfield. Let's talk Pendlebury. It's a tough one who to start with, really. I think a lot of people will have both. A lot will have had both from round one. And I think we'll start with Pendlebury because I think he's the most interesting one and perhaps the one where we to and fro a little bit. So he's had surgery on that broken finger. Initially, there were fears that he could be out for the rest of the season, which would have been, of course, an immediate trade out. Now there is talk that it could just be 1 week. You know, he can come back, wear a bit of a guard. Pendlebury has a history of returning from injuries very quickly. There is serious talk that 1, maybe 2. Now, Collingwood haven't really come out and said absolutely it'll be 1 or 2, but they've ruled out rest of the season, which was initially feared. They've sort of put a 1 to 3 weeks range on it, which is iffy. New light may come of that tomorrow, but at this stage I think it's 1 or 2 weeks, which is a real iffy situation. And the bugger with Pendlebury is he's had a couple of lean weeks as well, which means he's less than 500k. He's 497, so he doesn't even give us a stack of options to trade to, which a man like Pendlebury normally would. I guess the big question is, do you trade or do you hold? I think it is all dependent on how many trades you have left. If you're in a position where you'd planned out your trades to the finite detail and you couldn't afford to have anything like this come up, then you probably hold him. Of course, when you plan so thoroughly and to the exact trade to have 1 or 2 left or something like that, you don't have too much margin for error for something to go wrong, which in my case is exactly what's going on. I will hold Pendlebury at least for 1 week just to see whether we get any more news or anything like that, because by the time next week rolls around, we'll either be getting, no, he's not playing this week, which means a definite 2, or we'll get the, no, Scotty's travelling fine, he's in. So we'll find out whether what they're saying now is true or not, and I think we could probably afford to do that. You might have the luxury trade up your sleeve. If you've got 7 or 8 trades, then I would say you'd be trading him. You don't want to have guys sitting on the pine at this stage of the season worth 500k when there's other options. So it really does come down to where your trade situation lies. If you can't afford to waste a trade because you're cutting it really fine, you've got another upgrade that you'd rather do that actually upgrades from a guy who's not scoring well to a premium, then I would hold him, because I think he will be back. If it's 1, if it's 2, if it's 3 would really sting, but I think it's worth taking the risk. It does sound like 2 is the max. Now, I personally, my advice would be hold him at least for 1 week, just to get a guide. All right, he's missing this week, and then suss it throughout next week, because it does sound promising that he could be back for next week. And obviously, I think we can afford to hold him just 1 week. That's all right. Then we can maybe make that hard call. Options, obviously, Joel Selwood is screaming out to be selected. He's about 451, I think. Break even around 50 or 60. He's, of course, had a few knocks and things like that, which have seen his scores be really low at times. And now he has really plummeted in his scoring, or his pricing, I should say. So I think Joel Selwood is a must get and an affordable get. Other options that are fairly affordable. Clayton Oliver is a reasonable price. He's a little bit more than Pendlebury, but Rory Sloane, who isn't a definite chance to play, but perhaps in a week or two, some might be considering him. And Tom Rockcliffe, 437, just hasn't returned well from that injury. I'm not sure if he's still carrying a little bit of an injury or what, but if he does show some sign of scoring this week, I think his break-even's around 115, then he's priced at 437. If he drops to about 430 or even just around 450 and shows us that he's got a ton in him, I think he'd be a fantastic guy to bring in at this stage of the season. Cheap, your M8, your M9. Obviously, he's capable of much more than that, but we can get him at a really good price. So, other than that, we all know the options. All the premiums are shouting out at us, but there are a few guys that may be a bit cheaper and around the mark if you don't have a stack of cash or you can't afford to downgrade and upgrade Pendlebury. So, a few options there, but my real advice would be hold, wait and see, unless you desperately cannot afford to. And that situation where you desperately cannot afford to might be you're going to cop a zero because Pendlebury is out and Dangerfield is almost certainly out. Of course, he has been named this week, as has Sloane. I think less people have Sloane, but we can probably talk about him in a collective. But we know everyone has Dangerfield. He's been dominant, even dominated on one leg, as we've heard all week. Amazing against Hawthorn playing deep forward. But Scotty said he was about a 40% chance to play yesterday. He has gone to Adelaide, but don't let that give you any hope. It does not change anything. They're just bringing him over to give him all the time he possibly can to be right. I think it'll be touch and go, but I certainly think when push comes to shove, they're going to be like, gee, we're not going to go Paddy, put him out there when he could potentially make things worse. He'd be better off giving him that extra time. He's a prized possession and the Cats have finals around the corner. So definitely the Geelong staff will be certainly feeling as if there's any chance that he could do further damage or he isn't quite right, he will not play. So if this game was on a Sunday, maybe even a Saturday, I'd be pretty confident. But the fact it's a Friday, I would almost sit here and certainly say he will be out. Now, that could cause some people to have 2 zeros. Some people may have Sloane as well, the trio there, which could cause all sorts of dramas. Of course, do not trade Dangerfield. I don't think I even have to say that, do I? He's an absolute superstar and will only be out for the 1 week if he does miss. So just hold him. I shouldn't really need to say that. But otherwise, I think Sloane, if you've got him, again, you probably keep him because he's been named, which with a concussion means he's awfully close. And again, they're giving him right until the final minutes to prove himself, which basically says that next week he definitely will be right. So it's a bit different with Pendlebury, where it's a surgery. It's hard to say. Dangerfield and Sloane are knocks of different types, obviously, but they just need that extra day or two recovery time. So I think they'll be certainties for the week after if they don't happen to get up this week. And of course, Dangerfield being out does bring up a bit of an interesting conundrum. Obviously, the captaincy. For many weeks now, maybe every week for some of you, Dangerfield has been a lock for captaincy. Whether it's your VC, just to give you a bit of a sneaky look in case something happens, or you're confident enough to just always place a C on Paddy. And let's face it, he would not have let you down very often. But I think we've definitely got a plan for him not playing. And even if he does play, because there is a bit of an injury cloud over him, certainly the VC should be whacked on him given he's on the Friday night. So it begs the question, an irrelevant question, of who should we be looking at for our captaincy? Because not often it's a topic of conversation, but I think today it is. And this week it certainly will be. Look, Tom Mitchell, I think he's a really safe bet. Sometimes with captains, when we go outside the box and outside the reliable, sometimes you're just happy with 110. And Mitchell is going to give you that. Occasionally he has shown to pump out something plus 130. But more often than not, he sits beautifully between 100 and 115, which, you know, it's not going to win you the weekly prize, but it is a very safe bet, and you double your score of 3 figures, and you're very comfortable with it. So I think he's definitely an option. Dustin Martin, I really like as an option. I think it'll be a great game against the Giants. I really do feel that he will lift for a big game, and I think it's going to be a very close game too. So that's going to be certainly one to watch as well. They're probably the 2 guys who really stand out. I mean, I would have said Dane Zorko for many, but of course he's shown a bit of a weakness when he has shown a little bit of attention that he can seriously struggle. Zach Merritt falls in the same category as Tom Mitchell, just ever reliable, so reliable, and it's fantastic to see. But look, other than that, I don't think there's anyone who absolutely would be locking in as a clear replacement. I'll just take a look at a few of the stats just to give a bit of a guide for it. But I mean, obviously Gaz is out. I don't think Josh Kelly's super popular. Lockie Neal's very reliable, a bit like your Tommy Mitchells and Zach Merritt's, but I don't know if he's as popular as some. But I definitely think Dustin Martin, you could even, if Dangerfield doesn't play and you do bring in Joel Selwood, then I reckon Joel Selwood's a good VC option. Maybe Joel Selwood into a Zorko, or Joel Selwood into a Dustin Martin. I think either Danger or Joel Selwood should certainly be your VC. As simple as that, depending on last minute selections for the Cats. So that's probably where I'll be going with that one. And look, bit of a longer podcast here, but hopefully you guys have hung around. There's probably nothing else really to touch on. I think there's a few debutants playing, and of course a young bulldog. What was it? Lewis someone, I think. Might have been Lewis Young, now that I say it, but you know, of course, he was going very nicely in the long sleeves last week. At this stage of the season, you're really looking to just, Lewis Young, you're really just looking to finalise a few key areas on your side, whether it's your final defensive position. You know, Zach Williams is looking pretty cheap in a few weeks. He might be an option you look at just to round out. Michael Hurley, I reckon, has quickly become the best defender aside from Doherty. The forward line, of course, we've got a few cheap guys there. Kennedy on the return might be tempting for some. Yo is back in the team. So look, Dalhouse, a few people concerned with him. I'll personally hold him, but really across the board, it's going to be horses for courses. Most people are going to be thinking, all right, I've got one more premium to fill. You know, how do I do it? And really, at this stage of the season, you're pretty much downgrading for pure coin. There's not always going to be an option. Hopefully there will be. Try and play someone who is a potential chance to line up in these final rounds. But most importantly, it is to look ahead a few weeks and plan out where you are going to finish up with your final side, how many premiums you need, how much coin will you require, and do you have the trades to actually make that happen. So it is quite simple. It's a bit more difficult when we put the theory into practice, but I do feel that at this stage of the season, there's not too much other advice on exact trades I can give, aside from the Dangerfield and Pendlebury discussion, which will be what most people are talking about. I think really we're just trying to finalise a position or two. I've given you a few names, and try and get as much coin as you can to make that happen. And ideally, leave yourself with 1, 2, 3 emergency trades. Maybe even got a sneaky premium sitting on one of your benches, dual position style. So just to give you a bit of extra coverage. But anyway, guys, that's about all I've got for you today. Hopefully it's been of help and provided a little bit of discussion as well. So thanks for tuning in as always. Subscribe to the channel if you don't mind, and leave a comment by all means. I'll be back on Sunday to have a look at how my side went over the weekend. Hopefully I can keep climbing. I broke into the top 10k for the second time. Hopefully I don't slip out of it, but hopefully I can really scream my way up to maybe inside the top 8,000, top 9,000. We'll wait and see. But thanks again, guys. I'll catch you soon.